The billionaire owner of Manchester United says he wants to build the world's greatest football stadium. Jim Ratcliffe's ambitious design will feature a glass canopy and 3 tall pillars that will be visible from 25 miles away. Is it possible, or is this a billionaire's architectural dream? Hello and welcome to Roundtable. Now, Manchester United, one of the biggest football clubs in the world, has unveiled plans to build the largest stadium in the UK. The club predicts the project will add $9.4 billion to the UK economy each year. But with Manchester United currently in a financial crisis, is this really what the club needs and what the fans actually want?
A pioneering project to build an iconic stadium for world-renowned football club Manchester United.
1 billion followers globally. So it starts with the fans. And it starts with the idea of making something which is so intense, it brings you close to the pitch. Acoustically, it cultivates the roar. As you move away from the stadium, it's not a fortress surrounded by a sea of cars. It's open, and it's contained by an umbrella that harvests solar energy, harvests rainwater.
The stadium, worth $2.5 billion, will seat 100,000 fans and stand next to the existing Old Trafford Stadium. The billionaire co-owner of the club, Sir Jim Ratcliffe, wants the stadium to compete with others in Europe.
The Premier League is indisputably the best football league in the world, maybe the best sports league in the world. And it must have a stadium that's at least the equal of the best in Europe. And today it has some great stadiums, but it doesn't have a Bernabeu and it doesn't have a Nou Camp.
The stadium will be part of a wider regeneration of the Old Trafford area, with the UK government backing the plans. Manchester United says the project could create as many as 92,000 new jobs and 17,000 homes. However, both Liverpool and Newcastle United found it difficult to expand their stadiums due to close proximity to homes. So how realistic is this Manchester United dream stadium?
Well, let's meet our guests. Joining us from Wexford in Ireland is Kevin Doyle. He's a former Premier League footballer. In London, we have Ian Taylor. He's a sports media and communications professional and former head of communications at West Ham United FC. And in Manchester, we have Professor Kevin Singh. He's head of the Manchester School of Architecture. You're all very welcome to Roundtable. Ian, I'll come to you first. You worked for several years with Jim Ratcliffe at Team Ineos, the cycling team. Just give us your impression of the kind of standards he demands from people.
Yeah, thanks, Enda, and appreciate you welcoming me to the show. Yeah, certainly very high standards. He doesn't really take no for an answer. So I think when you see these incredible grand plans for Manchester United and the new stadium, I don't think it's a case of if, I think it's a case of when. He's very zero tolerance. He wants to achieve in sport, and they've had mixed success, haven't they, across all the sports that they've been involved in. And you could argue that it's not quite working out so far at United, but when he puts his mind to it, very little gets in his way. So I'm sure this will be a huge success over the years to come.
Kevin Doyle, to you, how important is it for Manchester United to get this project right?
There's a number of projects that need to get right, and from the stadium to the squad to the results on the pitch, to sticking with the manager. I was there last week, an Ipswich home game. It was a good atmosphere. I thought I was expecting it to be a bit more down and downbeat. It was a good atmosphere. It was a good crowd. They won the game, which helped. But there seemed to me, the stadium to me, there's so many top clubs in Europe. You look at the Bayern Munichs, the Barças, the Real Madrids, teams with fabulous stadiums, fabulous, impressive, modern, brand new, top-class facilities. And United base themselves on those clubs, and they want to have something similar. So I can understand why he wants to go and, be the best. They talk to themselves about being the biggest club in the world, but right now they don't have, far from the best stadium. It's not a bad stadium. It's been a lot worse. I've played there. The dressing rooms aren't great. You know, I was expecting to be a lot more impressed as a player going there. But the stadium isn't it isn't falling apart as the media portrays. It could be done up a little bit. It probably doesn't have to be a complete overhaul or complete new building like they plan to do. There's things that would you go there and you'd wonder. You see green moss growing on the big white canopy that you see on top of the stadium that holds the roof up. You things like that. You think, you know, they could do a job now. It's going to be 7 or 8 years before they have a building in place or a stadium in place. I'd imagine if it all goes to plan, they could do a job now on just keeping the current one, you know, up to standard.
Kevin, Singh, to you, as an architect, how excited are you by these drawings and impressions and sketches that we're seeing? The whole ambition of the project, does it excite you?
Well, I think it's fair to say that there are no other stadiums in the world like this. So I think it's going to be intriguing to see how that kind of unfolds. But clearly it's a bigger ambition than just the stadium itself, you know, the kind of potential to regenerate the whole of that area of Manchester as well. So it's obviously incredibly bold, ambitious. I guess when people were thinking about, you know, what might the stadium look like, you know, you might think what Barca have done, what Real Madrid have done, etc. But it's clearly something completely different from those. So yeah, exciting in that sense.
And tell me the time scale, Kevin, is 5 years going to be enough?
Well, I guess in this country, we don't have the best track record of delivering things on time. You know, think about HS2 in particular. I mean, you know, there's a whole load of work to be done in terms of develop the design, understand the cost. There's obviously the planning permission. You know, there's a lot of housing in that area as well. So there's going to be quite a lot of consultation, you know, working with the constraints, transport. Everybody knows, I think, about the kind of proximity of the railway line. So there's a lot of logistical things that are going to need to be sorted out, you know, before they can really sort of break ground in earnest. So 5 years seems pretty ambitious to me. I think, you know, we just mentioned maybe 7 years, maybe that's a little bit more realistic. But one would sense that there's a kind of political will and a local will with the council to make this happen. So, you know, potentially a few less hurdles than you might normally face.
Ian, talk to me about the challenges of a big Premier League club moving into a new big shiny stadium, as happened with West Ham United. You worked for West Ham for several seasons in the Premier League. You won a European trophy famously. You had some great times there, but there are challenges around getting it right, the move into a big shiny new stadium.
Yeah, there are. There's obvious challenges. I mean, I wasn't at the club in 2016 when they moved in, but you know, clearly there's always going to be teething problems. But I think the huge differential here between what Manchester United are looking to do and what Tottenham and what Arteta's have done is that, you know, they had bespoke stadiums, or they when they moved in, they were bespoke stadiums. West Ham was completely different, right? Because it was a legacy piece from 2012 from the Olympic Games in Stratford. I mean, yeah, speaking as a fan, first and foremost, I think, you know, atmosphere is the number one thing that is going to be important to fans. I mean, yes, you know, I'll have incredible access links. The bars will be amazing, I'm sure. And, you know, the offering on a match day and the match day experience will be great. But fundamentally, all supporters want, and, you know, over the years, and Kevin Doyle, not the other Kevin Doyle will be able to tell us what the atmosphere was like at Old Trafford during his playing days. But, you know, the one thing that West Ham fans really have struggled with since moving from the Bowling or Upton Park, whatever you want to call it, is the atmosphere. Yeah, and there have been occasions. My first game at West Ham was that incredible quarter-final night over Seville, where the place was absolutely bouncing under David Moyes. But then on the flip side, my last game as head of comms was against Brentford 3 or 4 weeks ago, and you could have heard a pin drop at times. So for me, it's really important that the atmosphere and the sight lines are really important for supporters. And I think, you know, I guess we're all football lovers first and foremost. Some of us, like Kev, were lucky enough to play the game. But, yeah, I think the atmosphere is fundamental to what that move looks like.
Kevin Doyle, to you, a lot of the fans seem to think that this money should be better off spent on new players and upgrading the squad and putting them in a position to actually compete again for the Premier League trophy, which United haven't won since 2013.
Well, I am a Man United fan, and I was since I was a kid. I think they've spent plenty of money without spending on a new stadium. It hasn't done much for their squad or league position. I don't think spending money is the nub of their problem. They throw money at every year and have done since Alex Ferguson left. I think they're the biggest spenders in England over the course of the last 10 years. It doesn't, they're 14th in the league. So that, just throwing money at it won't solve their on-field problems. But it is important. And that's a question that has to be answered as well. How do they fund the stadium? And if they're funding the stadium, will they still have the same sort of kitty available? Because there is a rebuilding job there with another new manager at the moment. Arsenal, it was pointed finger at Arsenal for a number of years. It was a reason for them being uncompetitive afterward. They were so good in Arsene Wenger's early years, and then they spent a lot of money moving stadium, building a new stadium. And that was the reason they gave for not being able to spend the transfer fees and why they fell behind, and that they're only sort of really catching back up now. So that's a question that has to be answered that no one, we don't know the details yet, so it's hard to answer. We don't know how they're funding it. We don't know what it'll take away. Where the team will play in the meantime as well. What's their thought? Are they going to use Old Trafford and build on the exact same site? Are they going to acquire land around there to build on, and play in the stadium while they're building a new one? Or the details sort of haven't come out on that yet. So it's just sort of wait and see it from a fan's perspective.
Kevin Singh, just talk to me about the impact this new stadium will make in that area of Manchester then. They're talking about thousands of new homes, 90,000+ new jobs, rail links, infrastructure. I mean, it will be a colossal investment for the Trafford Park area of Manchester.
Yeah, I think you just have to look at the other side of the city with what Man City have done with the Commonwealth Games Stadium. And I think when the Commonwealth Games were there was a huge gap between Sports City, as it was called at the time, and the city centre. It felt about 30-minute walk away, kind of wasteland, really. And the stadium has proved to be the catalyst to fill in that whole section of the city. So we now have New Islington, a combination of support from the City Council and private developers. Ancoats has been regenerated. And it's often voted as one of the top places to live in the world now, one of the top 3 places. So, the sort of city centre expanding and reaching towards some of these destinations, can be hugely sort of impactful and huge sort of influx of finance into the city. So one would expect that at Old Trafford, obviously there's, quite a bit of sort of industrial, sort of use around there that, with a destination stadium, sort of maybe sort of carte blanche in a way, to put houses, businesses, transport, entertainment, that what happened in East Manchester can happen over in Salford as well.
Ian, looking at this from Jim Ratcliffe's point of view, everything he's touched in his life has turned to gold. He's a multi-billionaire. Has he kind of bitten off a bit more than he could chew at Manchester United because he hasn't had the immediate success he would have hoped for, given his previous in cycling and sailing and even football in other countries? He's had a very good record, but Manchester United has not gone his way just yet.
I mean, if you watch the interviews that he did with some of the UK outlets last week, I think he almost said, he feels they're almost par for the course in terms of when he walked into the building where he expected them to be. Now, Kev's obviously a fan, so he'll probably have a better grasp on that than me. But I would certainly say that they're behind the 8 ball in terms of where they should be, certainly under this manager, given his, I was going to say experience. He's obviously not super experienced given his age, but given what he achieved in Portugal, I would caveat that slightly. You talk about Ratcliffe's successes, but I wouldn't, certainly having watched from afar in recent years with what's gone on at Ineos Grenadiers, a lot of the success that the cycling team have had in recent years was under the Sky umbrella. So, and Nice as well. Limited success, I would argue. So, I don't think that everything he's turned his hand to in professional sport has been quite that straightforward. But granted, Enda, that what he's done in his business life has been incredible. But I think I would say they're behind the 8 ball. But I would, to my point in the first answer I gave, don't rule him out getting this right at some point. But I think it's probably going to be a bit more of a slow burn than some of the projects he's been involved in previously.
Kevin Doyle, do you think what would have really worked would have been peak Alex Ferguson 25 years ago, that Manchester United squad, and then Jim Ratcliffe comes in with all his billions, as opposed to the Glazers from Florida?
Oh, yeah, listen, nothing is ever perfect, Enda. He's come in, it's still not perfect. Like, he still only owns 25% of the club. He's still not fully in charge. He's been brilliant for the Glazers because he's taken the pressure off them. You know, he's come in, he doesn't actually own the club, but no one's giving out about the Glazers at the moment. They're questioning his decisions. You know, he spent a lot of money to get a director of football from Newcastle, and you know, sacked him after basically 4 months. You know, a few strange things straight away. But as you said, he's proven in life, in business. Football is different. You see different owners coming in and different people coming in and think they're going to change the world with their football club, and they have all the answers. And it's a different story. It all comes down to, on the pitch, at the end of the day, results. If Man United were in the top 4 right now, and he was announcing plans for this stadium, everyone's saying, fantastic, the club is on the up, brilliant. But it's just the fact of where their league position is. A change of manager halfway through the season, question marks over the new manager already. You know, all comes down to results on the football pitch, and how do you get a team winning? How do you create an atmosphere, a culture in the club? And he says in his interviews, the lads were saying, he spoke in the media recently, last week, he's trying to create that culture, trying to cut down on waste or maybe sort of unnecessary hangers-on and become a more focused or central point, a team. And get results. Their form on the pitch, the last 2 games is actually the best I've seen in play since the new manager took over. So maybe there is an upward turn in performance on the pitch, but everything to do with football, you know, my whole career, there's talk, you know, question marks on owners goes out the window from fans, which, you know, rightly or wrongly, once the team is winning, they don't care. They don't care if a country owns your club. They don't care if a gangster owns your club. If the team is winning on top of the league, fans quickly are very happy and, you know, will accept whatever plans an owner comes up with.
Kevin, you know, when you were back playing at Reading, I remember John Medeski, hugely successful businessman. He was from the town. The club was his life. He was a lifelong fan. He'd put millions into the club, the stadium, the playing squad. When it works, you know, it works brilliantly.
Yeah, fabulous. You know, he was the ideal scenario, sort of the old school owner, a very, very wealthy man owning his local club. You know, he wasn't a massive soccer fan, but he went to every game, home and away, or nearly every game, support the club, put money in, and it went fabulous, you know, and he built a new stadium, and he used to get a lot of stick as well for not putting enough money in. But the club was successful over a long period of time. And then, again, as about owners, he got an older man and less, I suppose, energetic in owning a football club, and felt to play in the Premier League, instead of having a 300 or 400 million, as he used to say, you needed someone with 3 or 4 billion. So he sold it on, and how quickly it turned around. You know, he sold it to people who he thought had the money to push the club forward, and they didn't. It was all, you know, cloak and dagger and mistruths, and now the football club was very close to going out of business in the last couple of years. So things can change very quickly. You know, sometimes you don't realise how lucky you have it, as clubs, as fans, as players, when you have an owner who does the right thing, but maybe doesn't do it overnight, or doesn't throw money at every single problem. Tries to take a long-term approach to it. I mean, building this stadium at Manchester United, that is a long-term approach. So, you know, he has to be applauded for that as well.
Kevin Singh, the price tag of £2 billion, it's a colossal amount of money, but yes, taxpayers' cash will be dragged into this because of the housing and the infrastructure and the transport links. So how will that go when Jim Ratcliffe starts talking to Keir Starmer saying we need several £100 million for everything else we want to do?
Well, I guess that's I was going to say $1 million question. That's probably the $2 billion question. You know, I think normally these things often work with a good combination of public money, private finance. You know, I talked about some of the regeneration in Manchester in recent years, and, you know, probably like many places, these combinations of sort of finance tend to be the way forward. I think, probably the sensible way forward is that Jim Ratcliffe, funds the stadium, and the regeneration with the kind of wider benefit for the city and for the community. Then potentially that can be funded, by local government, central government. But it would seem, maybe not the thing to do for government to actually support the stadium itself.
And Kevin, just another question to you. Manchester United are saying that this project will bring in about £7.3 billion a year to the UK economy, which would be hugely welcomed. That level of growth, do you think it is possible that United get this right and this stadium will become a huge money generator for the northwest of England? They're calling it the Eiffel Tower of the North.
Yeah, I think people underestimate income that is generated. So, even if you just take Manchester as it is right now, incredibly sort of booming city, but the impact of 2 Premier League teams, the hotels are full every weekend, they're full midweek. You try and get a hotel on a Champions League night, for example, the price skyrockets. You just see, around the airport, when I flew out of Manchester a few weeks ago, you could see United fans flying in, for example. The money that these sorts of things generate. And of course, one of the things around this stadium design, it's clear that this is about a sort of dwell time. Let's get people to the stadium, to the campus, get them there early, spend money, the shop, the hospitality, and so on. I mean, it resonates with the kind of NFL tailgate parties. People turn up hours and hours before. Probably all of us on this call remember the cup final when it was the only game on TV and it started at 9 o'clock in the morning. I think this kind of stadium plan, where it's so much about everything else, the time people spend there, the money people spend there, I think it could have that kind of financial impact.
Ian, just from your years working at West Ham United, just talk our viewers through the difference that stadium, the Olympic Stadium, has made to the East End of London, Stratford. It's completely changed from when I first came to London in the 90s.
Yeah, huge. And obviously, the difference here is that it was part of an Olympic project. So, there's a number of huge new facilities, they're not new now, are they? Makes you realise how long ago it was. 13 years old now. But what it's done to that local area from a regeneration point of view can't be underestimated. And I've kind of seen firsthand the positive impact it can have on the community. And Manchester is a very diverse area. And it's similar to London in many ways, that there are very affluent parts, but on the flip side, there are very poor and deprived parts as well. And having a stadium in a heartbeat of everything can make such an impact in the community. And I don't think that can be underestimated. And to be fair to the owners at our club, my former club, West Ham, and Jim Ratcliffe at Old Trafford, they're already talking about that. Omar Barada's talking about that and the impact it can have on the community. And I think, taking the football side away from it for a moment, that's really important, because there are a lot of people that, the amount of jobs that this is going to create first and foremost is significant, and that giving something back to the community is fundamental.
Kevin Doyle in Wexford, just final point to you. You're a United fan all your life. 10 years from now, if this stadium is built and it looks the way we're seeing in all these incredible images, can you see Manchester United back on top of their perch, as Alex Ferguson once famously put it when he was talking about Liverpool?
Yeah, listen, the stadium might or might not get them back on their perch. It'd be great to have it. It'd be great to coincide with them, to get back to where they want to be. It's probably not going to happen next year or the year after, but if they can have a bit of consistency, keep a manager for longer than a year or two, and I do like this current manager, they might be back there before this stadium ever comes to fruition. But, football changes very quickly. 2 or 3 years, they could be back at the top and eagerly awaiting finishing this stadium so they can really crown it with, being proud of a top-class facility. Said all the top clubs now have these top-class facilities. They've all improved. Liverpool haven't done a new stadium, but they've just opened a new stand. Everton moving into a fabulous new stadium. There are European rivals in Barca and Real Madrid in top-class stadiums. So, they want to keep up with these at least, and maybe pass them out. So hopefully on the pitch before the 5 to 7 years we're waiting on that stadium.
And Kevin Singh, just one last point. As an architect, how excited would you be if you got the opportunity to work on any aspect of this project?
Well, I'm a City fan, so maybe not. But no, I think obviously for Norman Foster, who's actually a alumni of the Manchester School of Architecture, I mean, incredible opportunity to do a kind of landmark project like this. And I'm sure everybody who works on it, the supply chain, will be really excited about it. But personally, I'll just step aside this one.
Kevin Singh, thank you. Kevin Doyle in Wexford and Ian Taylor as well. Thank you all so much for your insight. Remember, you can see more discussion and debate on our YouTube channel. Just search for Roundtable TRT World. But for now, from me, Enda Brady, and all of the team here, goodbye and thank you for watching.